Hey, Pillow Talkers, welcome back to the pod. Today's episode is lifted from an event, a free event I did last week called We Are Not Fucking Around, which was a pep talk. It was so much fun. Thank you all who showed up. Wow, I had a blast. I'm definitely going to do that again sometime in the future. So enjoy, and you'll hear me talk about this in the podcast. You probably heard me talk about it everywhere because I've been talking about it everywhere. But Turned On, my brand new program, which I am so excited about, is enrolling. We start next week. We start on February 17th. So if you're interested, if you are someone who identifies as a creator, an innovator, an enterpriser, a lifelong learner, someone who is growth oriented and wants to create and function and perform at a high level without all the like burnout and crunchiness and discipline and kind of like rigidness that is often the framework of that conversation and that way of being, this program is for you. This program is really, God, it's really exciting for me to share this. What I'm going to be teaching you in this program is all of the back end stuff. So what I'm calling it is the inner game of being on your game. I am going to be teaching you what we need to step into in our inner game in order to perform at our highest level, in order to create from our potential, in order to function at full charge. And the way that I have developed to do this, first of all, it comes from, my philosophies around all of this and my practices around all of this come from a lot of experience and a lot of trial and error from being self-directed, self-employed for the last handful of years and in many ways, my whole life and everything I've come to understand about resilience and adaptability and like what actually goes into bringing your best to fruition in the world, right? And you hear me talk about this in the episode, but part of why I feel the timing of this program is so pertinent is like, I don't know about y'all, but like I feel that what we need, I'm going to guess you agree with me, but we really fucking need innovation right now. Like we really need creative, good-hearted, capable people owning their capability, owning their power, stepping into their potential. And this is something that we need as a collective, we need as society, we need people who are capable and have unique insights to own their power, right? And bring that forth into the world. And on a personal level, for you as an individual, this is also, for anyone listening to this podcast, I think we connect on this. Like just one of the greatest joys in life is growing and expanding and learning and getting better and better, right? And we get to do that in a way that is gentle and has a humanist approach, right? I mean, sometimes it's not gentle. I'll get into that. But we get to do that in a way that has a humanist approach that doesn't deplete us, right? That like if we want to create and perform at a high level on a sustainable basis, we need to integrate this into a lifestyle that is actually sustainable. So as you can tell, I have so much to share on this. Like I am truly, truly looking forward to this program. If you're listening to this, it is Thursday, the 11th. So we start on the 17th. You still got time. Go to my Instagram at the Cora Boyd. Check out the deets. DM me if you want to chat about it. I'm going to be sharing with you understandings and practices that I really, basically you're not going to have to learn through futzing around in the same way that I did. And I also got a lot of help along the way, which I am fully grateful for. And that's part of what we're going to talk about too, is setting up support systems for yourself. You don't have to do it all by yourself, et cetera, et cetera. But lest I talk for the entire episode before I need to talk for the entire episode, let's just dive right into it. Go check out details and enroll at coraboydcoaching.com/turnedon. Who are you, a full charge, my friends? Let's find out. Let's start playing big, playing in your potential. All right, we are not fucking around. Relax. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Welcome to Pillow Talk Radio, the most delicious place to be. On this podcast, we explore how to create more connection, possibility, romance, and magic in love and in life. I'm your host and relationship specialist, Cora Boyd. Are you with me? Story time. I'm going to tell you guys a bit about my story, and there's a lot of places I could start, but I'm going to start with the genesis of my career trajectory. And the reason I want to share this with you is because from what it sounds like, a lot of you are going through life transitions, or you're going through something where like you are in a stage where you're needing to be self-motivated, or you're pivoting directions, or whatever the case might be. A lot of what I'm gonna, like the language and examples I'm gonna give are specific to my experience in entrepreneurship or like the creative process. And what I want you guys to realize is that it doesn't matter what you're up to right now, whether that's your identity or not. Ultimately, this is about lifestyle design and purpose, right? Lifestyle design, purpose, being self-directed in whatever way we are. We all are. You all self-directed yourself to be here. We are the CEOs. We're the entrepreneurs of our lives, right? We're the creators of our lives. So listen through that lens. Listen through that perspective. However this applies to you as the designer of your life, as someone who is the motivator of your life, as the person who is the enterpriser in your life, whatever that means for you. When I graduated from college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had saved up some money, both nannying and working at the women's center at my university, which basically was the sickest job ever because I ate leftover pizza and socialized and got paid. It was great. So I saved up some money and I went and I traveled for a year, in part as an exploratory phase and in part because I was putting off entering the real world. I had very little professional confidence. I had a lot of social confidence. I had a lot of confidence in certain areas, but my professional confidence was very low. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I have some ideas, but they all kind of sound terrible. And like, none of that feels like me. So I went and I traveled for a year. I did the full backpacking thing. I also was doing a no poo year, if anyone's familiar with that. I feel like Jess is, which is where you don't shampoo your hair and you wash it with baking soda. Yeah, Jess knows. And I was living on, legitimately, I lived on $10 a day for a year. So that was kind of an interesting game that I was playing at that time. I also, if you can imagine this, since you all probably know how much I love clothes, I had the same backpack of clothes for that whole time. Like I didn't have clothes. Like it was a huge experience for me in a lot of ways in terms of like self-direction and responsibility, and then just like how my mind was opening up, and then kind of like being very enterprising and how I figured out how to live on $10 a day for a year and like really make my money stretch so that I could prolong this period of not having to enter the real world. And it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome on so many levels. I learned a lot. And I was in a position where I really started to question everything about everything. And I was also in these different environments. I would work at bed and breakfast. So I had different eras of this time. One of the eras was I had to get out of the Schengen region of the EU, which I didn't know was a thing until I was like, oh shit, my visa's about to expire. So I went to Northern Ireland, naturally, because why not? And I worked at a bed and breakfast there. And like, I would do things like that, where I would figure out ways to get room and board. And like, that's how I did it. In that time, I saw a lot of different ways that people were living, both culturally. And I also started to meet a lot of like digital nomads. And I started to have all these conversations about just different ways of looking at things and different ways to do life. And like, my mind just started to open a lot. My mind started to open and I started to get these ideas. And this was a time I was exploring a lot. I like was, okay, where's my life going to go? What direction am I going to take this in? I carried, if this isn't symbolism, I don't know what it is. I had the textbook for the GRE to study for the GRE, which I did not want to go to grad school. And I totally honor that path. I personally did not want to go to grad school, but my mom wanted me to. So I carried this really heavy book. I had like 5 articles of clothing, and the entire time I carried this GRE study book as this like symbol of what I was maybe going to do. But I literally never once opened it. during this time, my eyes started to open to a lot of like ways that I could live and a lot of like ways that I could be and a lot of ways that I hadn't thought of. And then I was meeting these people who were digital nomads, digital entrepreneurs who were like, another term is like location independent, right? Which I guess at this point we're all location independent in different ways, right? Or we're kind of living that lifestyle. So I was really attracted to that. I've always been extremely enterprising. I've always been really good at directing myself. I've always been very self-directed and very proactive in like how I've devised opportunities for myself or kind of like followed my own path. So I was really attracted to that. I was really attracted to it, but I did not have in my identity that I could do business. I had very little professional confidence. It was something I had I was a creative writing major. I was a double major in creative writing and Spanish and a psych minor. So it wasn't really on my radar. It wasn't really in my self-concept that I could do business because I was like, what? I have no business background. But I was very like anytime I met someone who's like enterprising or like putting things together in a different way, I was like, I would get almost like kind of frustrated because I was like, I want to do that. What are they doing? What are they doing? And I didn't realize I was doing that myself. It just wasn't through the conduit of business, right? So that's really how I view business too for myself. For whatever you're up to. I know some of you have businesses or you have creative outlets, or we can think of our career trajectory as it's an entrepreneurial journey, whether it's an entrepreneurial venture or not, right? It's an entrepreneurial journey because there's stuff that's self-directed. So I got back to the US. I was having a terrible time. I had like really weird reverse culture shock. I remember when I got back and all my clothes were in my closet and I just like got all the clothes. I was like, what? Like I couldn't conceive of it. It was very strange. And then it was very strange to kind of like think about, I had been playing the game of like, how can I live with as little money as possible? And then to shift the game of like, oh, actually, how do I make money and like set up a life for myself and all of these things? So I was experiencing a lot of internal confusion. I was moving past some heartbreak or like very much in some heartbreak. And then I was confronted with this, holy shit, like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what? So I had a bunch of jobs. Some at the same time. I sewed lingerie at one point. I was the assistant to a very grumpy actor, which I was terrible at. I'm a terrible assistant, both because I hate being told what to do and because I'm not detail oriented, which is why I have Jazz now. Or those of you who don't know, Jazz is my business manager. So yeah, I did that, did some copywriting. I like sold clothes in the French market in New Orleans. Like I did a bunch of shit. I did a bunch of things and I did a bunch of things at once. And I was really committed to like, okay, I'm figuring this out. So I took one step at a time and I was like, okay, I like that. Okay, I hate that. Okay, I'm good at this. Okay, I'm bad at that. And I essentially started to study myself in a way that I hadn't before. Study what I liked, study what I didn't, started like really putting the pieces all together. And then I started running. I started listening to a bunch of personal development books. I started like things started to piece together. And when I say this, I feel like when people tell stories like this, it's just like, yes, everything came to fruition. Like at the time, it was extremely unpleasant. I really want to emphasize that. Like I was having a bad time. I was having a really bad time. And it did start to piece together. It started to piece together. I had heard about this matchmaking thing. I had a friend who was in San Francisco where they're like matchmaking is poppin' scene in San Francisco, if you can believe it, or if anyone knows, if anyone's in San Francisco. So I had heard about this thing that you could be a matchmaker as a job. And I was like, what the literal fuck? Like, that is me. I love people. I love dating. I love social psychology. I love like all of that stuff. So I was also really determined that I wanted to work remotely because I wanted to keep traveling. I wanted this location independence that I had seen people having. I manifested a remote matchmaking job, which I had mentioned. I was like, I mentioned to my mom, I was like, I think like, what if like, I want to do the matchmaking thing, but like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to, I was hesitant to commit to things because I wanted the location independence. But then, yes, it arose, this remote matchmaking job. I got it and I started doing that. And oh my God, I learned a lot doing that. I did that for 2 years and I traveled while I was doing it. I learned a lot. And as this was happening, like things were starting to come together. In many ways, I did not like that job. In many ways, it was not a fit, not because of the matchmaking, but certain things with the business structure. I also was managing my own time for the first time. That was hard. I had never been in a position, and I feel like with COVID, a lot of people experience this of like, oh my God, how do I do this if there's no structure? Like, how do I do this? Jay is laughing. How do I do this if there's no structure? How do I do this if no one is telling me what to do? How do I do this? So I completely managed my own client roster. And I also, I think I was 23 at the time. And I was like really thrown into this position where I was like concierging the love life of like all these executives. And I was like, whoa. And I had to learn how to speak. I learned so much about people. I had to learn so much about motivating myself and like keeping myself accountable and all of these things that took a while. It took a while to learn. So I was doing that job remotely. I was going on a road trip around the country by myself, a 5-month road trip, which was very interesting, very interesting. And I was I was already feeling this fire. I was like, okay, I was starting to build confidence. I was starting to build confidence in my ability to motivate myself and follow through on things and do good work and all of these things, right? So there was already this fire building. And I was starting to have this idea. I was starting to piece things together where I was like, okay, there's a serious need and there's a serious gap in the market. And I am the gap in that market. So I was starting to like kind of have these ideas of like, whoa, maybe I could start a business. But at first it was outlandish. The thought was outlandish at first. It was like, maybe I could do that. And then I was like, how on earth are you going to do that? You don't have a business background. You don't know how to blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, yeah, but maybe I could do that. And it's like, how do you think you're going to do that? Right. I think we know the dance. We know the dance where it's like, we feel an internal pull to something, but we don't know how to do it. And then our little fear monsters are like, you don't know how to do that. Right. Instead of like, actually, you can figure shit's a lot easier than we let it be. We can figure things out. Right. We can figure things out. So actually, I want to take us back to a moment. So I was on this road trip and I was in Portland. I was going to go visit a friend who was living in Southern Oregon. And like 2 days before I was going to go down there, he died. And some of you know him. He died. And that was obviously a shock. It was like a freak accident. And that moment, like with everything that I was already building, in that moment, I was like, whoa, life is finite. Like life ends. What am I doing? I'm not fucking around anymore. Like I'm not fucking around, right? Like the whole dance of like, I can maybe, or like, how am I gonna, like that whole dance. I was just like, no, literally why on earth would I not be like rooting for myself and working with myself and like going after exactly what I want to be doing now, right? Because I had these stories. I was like, oh yeah, one of my stories with myself was like, I'll wait till I'm 27 to start my business because then people will take me seriously, which is hilarious. Well, now I am 27 now, but I'm really glad I started before now because now it's happening. But these are the things we tell ourselves, right? Whatever it is you're desiring to do or be, or like it might be a relationship, right? It might be a business. It might be a career pivot. It might be like whatever it is. Why would we fuck around around that? We're not fucking around, right? So that was like a really specific moment where what I was building and like the momentum I was building, like it was already starting to happen. And then that happened. And then that's really when I made the decision. I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do. And like, I'm going to create what I want to create and I'm going to do it in my own way. So then I started this whole journey, which then I had to learn through like, the doubts would come up and how do I do that? And the reception from other people and all of these things. It's like, I had to build all of that confidence again in a different way as a entrepreneur, right? And this is when I really started to understand how much everything, and especially any sort of creative pursuit, and especially any sort of like self-directed thing, and especially any of those things that does not follow the traditional trajectory or the path, it's an inner game. It is entirely an inner game. The things itself, and I say this, and some of the magnetics girls who are here know this, right? Like the things themselves that we want to do, they're not actually that hard. what I really came to understand and have come to understand more and more and more and more and more and more is like, it's entirely the inner game that we play with ourselves. Like we are capable of so much. We are capable of so much. We can literally do anything. I'm going to imagine that everyone here in this past year has moved through things in ways that you didn't know you were capable of, right? Or you have shown up in ways that you didn't know you were capable of. We can literally do anything. And my clients who are here will laugh at me too, because sometimes I like to shout at you all about how anything is possible till it gets in your noggin. Anything is possible, right? The things itself, like it's not really that hard. If we were to say, okay, like what needs to happen for me to get into a relationship? Well, I need to get out there and meet some people and like ask them out and go on dates and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. What do I need to do to start a business? Okay, well, I need to start up a website. I need to start telling people that I have a business, that this is what I do. I need to start charging money for it. I need to like start gathering clients. Like it's not actually that hard. What makes it hard is the doubts. It's the self-sabotage. It's the mismanaging our energy. It's the ways that we try to replicate what we think we should be doing instead of actually working with what works for us, right? It's all of the ways that we work against ourselves. So what I have been in the practice of in the last, honestly, my whole life, but more potently in the last handful of years is mastering my inner game, like mastering from this place of like, I'm not fucking around, even as I am fully fucking around. And there's a synergy too between, right? Like I'm not fucking around in the greater sense, but like by me not fucking around, I'm opening up more time for me to like fuck around, if you will, right? Many of you probably know I'm certified in the psychology of happiness. And I am really passionate about well-being. I'm really passionate about quality of life, which is a huge part of what initially drew me to coaching people around relationships, dating and relationships, is that it is literally the number one predictor of happiness is the quality of our relationships, the quality, right? And a huge part of why I decided to work for myself is because I wanted the freedom to be able to design my life and like live my life where I could like squeeze the most amount of quality out of everything. Really what I've been in the practice of for, in some ways, all of my life, and most potently, as I said, in the last handful of years, is how can I design my life in every aspect of it? My business and my personal life and what I do to relax and what I do for fun and what I do for my body and all of these things. Like, how can I design this in such a way where everything feeds everything else energy? And that's what I've been up to. And it's pretty lit. It's pretty awesome. So Jay is giggling. That's a good sign. I'm taking that as a cue. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention the part where I knew that I needed to change my environment to be able to like support. I started to make decisions where I was like, okay, what do I need in order to like perform at a high level? Like, what do I need in order to be motivated? Like, who do I need to be around? What do I need to be listening to? What do I need? Like all of these things every single day, just a cumulative compounded practice of like every aspect. And part of that was I needed to change my environment. So I moved to Seattle and I didn't know anyone. Now I'm here. There's a few things I really want to impart to all of you. And then I'm going to move into a handful of takeaways that have been incredibly valuable for me. The first is that a lot of the way that we're taught to function, I have come to realize, is dysfunctional. So a lot of the way that we come towards work or things, projects or creations, it's in a cycle that's not regenerative. So it's like push, 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 push. I have to be disciplined. I have to be motivated. And then we burn out and we lose momentum. And then we're like, I have to recover. And then we have to start the momentum again. And it can feel like you're like pushing a boulder up a mountain. And then you're like, I'm so tired. And then you like take a break and then it like kind of like it starts rolling back down. You're like, fuck, I have to like get the discipline to move it forward, right? That's what I realized when I started this whole process, was that at first I was replicating ways of working and being and functioning that, first of all, just don't really make any sense. they're not sustainable. It's not sustainable because what actually gets things moving and momentum, what we want to do is tap into the compound effect of this leads to this, leads to this, and it's building. And then it creates its own momentum and energy so that we get to be a human. We get to relax. We get to have days where we're in a bad mood, right? Like we get to have months where we're in a funk and things are projects and our trajectory and our path continues forward. So a good example of that would be the dating show, right? And if any of you, some of you may know me from the cut video I did. The reason that happened was that I moved to Seattle. I didn't know anyone. I started networking. I was like, okay, cool. What can I like? One win, one little win, one little win, one little win. Like things were building on themselves, building their own momentum, right? Then I met this guy named Jordan, who some of you know, and he's like, yo, let's do this dating show. So we started doing these live dating shows, and they were really successful and they were really fun. And then someone from Cut came to one of my shows and then invited me to do that video. And then that burst my business. And like, it's all compounded, right? It's like all this momentum and a huge part of how I've been able to sustain that and how I've been able to continue to grow. And I really realized this with COVID too. And I think a lot of us probably had this time and space and confrontation with mortality this last year to be like, well, I don't think I'm fucking around anymore. Like, yep. I don't think I'm fucking around. So I feel that a lot of you can probably relate to this. But what I realized this last year was that, okay, this confrontation with mortality, right? With like the reality that we're all going to die. And what does that mean for the time that we spend alive, right? What does that mean for the time that we spend alive? What does that mean for how we live our lives? Not just what we do, but how we enjoy the experience, right? So it's the forward momentum and it's the quality. And what I realized as this hit, and you know, there's the mortality, there's the, oh my God, I'm in my house alone, being with my feelings. Oh no, like, oh my God, there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's, you know, maybe I lost my job, maybe whatever, like curveballs hit and we're like, shit, we got to get innovative. I didn't fully realize until this last year how hardcore I have been training for this shit. In terms of like innovation, right? And in terms of the inner game with myself that I have, the inner emotional game, right? Like being able to move through disappointment and discouragement and motivate myself and all of these practices and these mental health practices and all of the things that I've set up in my life and all of the ways that I've designed my life to support me so that there's this entity that I feed and it feeds me, right? And there's various parts of this entity, there are various entities within the entity. I didn't fully realize how far I had come with all of that and like what I had really done in my relationship with myself and like my approach to life and like my relationship with uncertainty, my ability to pivot and my ability to be adaptive, like literally all of these things I had been doing until this happened. And I grew, my business grew and my mindset and all of these things. So the place that I'm at right now is I feel like we need to be having more conversations like this about other ways of doing things and other ways of being. And what we really need is smart people who are innovative and creative to start working with themselves, start working in the flow with themselves instead of like working against themselves or trying to work in some sort of pattern that works for like a 50-year-old dude across the country. And then we're all like, oh yeah, that's how work should go. We're all like, okay, right? Instead of studying ourselves and being like, cool, what are my energy patterns? How can I charge my energy? How do I leverage my motivation? All of these things. I really feel a responsibility to just continue to level the fuck up because I look at shit and I'm like, give me the mic, y'all. Like, give me the fucking mic. I could do better than that, right? And I know, and this is part of what this last year, and like for all of my clients who are here and everyone who's here who's gone through my programs, it's amazing to get to support and like take everything that I've learned over years and continue to learn because I'm always I'm always upping my game and I'm always leveling up and all of the things that come with that, right? I have been in this process of continual ascension. And that's what I help people do in various ways. And it's just really encouraging. It's really encouraging to get to work with you and to get to support you in that. And I just I see so clearly how much intellect there is and how much good-heartedness there is and how much innovation there is and how much creativity there is. And I personally feel a responsibility, not just for myself in my own life, but like for society to not fuck around at all, because clearly we need to make some shifts and we need to be thinking outside of the box and we need to be looking at ways of doing things that work for more than one demographic of humans, right? I know that I can do that because I've been doing it and because I'm going to continue to do it and because I'm committed to continuing to do it. And I also know that all of you can do it in your own ways too, because quite frankly, for personal reasons, none of us need to be fucking around. And for a collective reasons, like we're not fucking around. All of this is to say there are other ways of doing things that are regenerative, that don't require you to be a martyr while also still helping people. You ever hear someone say something like, someone told me, I can't remember who it was, I heard it multiple times. They're like, you have to choose between your personal life, your social life, your studies, and getting enough sleep. Morgan's nodding. It's like, who the fuck came up with that? And why did we all believe that? Like, no, you don't. You don't have to choose. You can literally have everything. You can have everything and you can make an impact and you can be happy and successful and like thrive in your own right. In fact, we need people to be personally thriving because we need to channel that regenerative energy into society and help society thrive. So all I'm saying is we're not fucking around. So let's say it, everyone unmute. Let's say it together. On the count of 3, everyone's unmuted. Okay, we're gonna say it together. We're not fucking around. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. We're not
fucking around anymore.
So basically, this is turned on. The inner game of being on your game. Turn yourself on. Essentially, this is what we're learning. We're learning a radical regenerative approach to high performance, energetic, mental, and emotional mastery for sustainable success, unlimited creativity, and work-life synergy. Who it's for: creators, innovators, enterprisers, lifelong learners, self-starters, all of you, essentially, who are ready to turn themselves on, work with themselves instead of against themselves, leave the cycle of burnout and push energy behind, tap into their own regenerative sources of energy, joy, motivation, and creativity, and soar into new heights of personal and professional success and fulfillment. So a few essential pieces of this that I'm really excited to bring in is the ascension stuff. Because there's a difference between the building phase and the growing phase. There's different demons that come up, which I have been dancing with and slaying one day at a time. So I'm really excited to share so much of what I've learned and what I've learned, especially in the last year around that. And then the other piece I want to bring in is like, this is about life quality. This is about life quality and like being happy about what we're creating and like happy about what we're putting our time towards. And like, the joy piece is also essential, and joy in the creative process as well. So it's 6 weeks. There are 12 recorded trainings. So for those of you who have done Flirt Harder, it's a similar format, but it's a little longer. So you get in the portal, 2 pieces of content drop every week. And then every week we have a live Q&A call where we go deeper and we hang out with each other. You get lifetime access to all the content. I'm also going to bring in to the trainings, I'm going to bring in a handful of practices too, some kind of like somatic practices, and I'm probably going to bonus in visualizations and that good stuff. So, and you get access to the members portal. What we cover, and this is not all of it. How to clear your energy, identify and zip up energy leaks, charge your energy, propel your energy, understand and work with your naturally occurring energy patterns. How to design a lifestyle that sets you up to thrive both personally and professionally, and how to create optimal synergy between every area of your life. How to work with and understand the true nature of motivation and discipline so you can tap into the regenerative pull energy of momentum and step out of the burnout push cycle. How to tune into flow states and leverage fun, rest, play to propel you forward. Very essential. How to caretake and optimize your physiology for primed energy and mental cognitive clarity. The essential principles of the psychologies of happiness and success, how to integrate this knowledge into tangible daily practices. Emotional mastery, how to move through disappointment, discouragement, and periods of time when you feel like shit. The importance of and the art of celebration as fuel. How to set up a support system, connect with like-minded communities, and choose the right teachers and mentors for you. brightening your radiance and magnetism, and the importance of dressing up. I'm particularly excited about that part. Next level self-care practices for integration, healing, and rejuvenation. So there's going to be a lot of somatic stuff in that I'm going to teach you guys. How to effectively coach yourself, evaluate yourself, course correct, and improve without your ego freaking out. How to create and employ avatars and corral your different facets into harmonious teamwork. How to amplify and work with your strength for optimal joy and efficacy. How you learn best, so more self-study. How to integrate, retain, and embody those learnings. How to tap into the synergies between sexual energy, creative energy, and sex magic. David says that's metal. Yeah, I'm really excited about that part too. How to hold boundaries with self and boundaries with time, boundaries with other people, so you can spend more time in your flow and zone of genius. How to work with and understand the nature of inspiration, open up to channel your best ideas. Because it's not a head game. Sometimes we're like, I'm going to figure out this idea. It's not a head game. It's you have to change your state. Then they come. The idea for this class literally just came. I just was like, got the download. I was like, we're not fucking around. Pep talk. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So trusting your creativity, like trusting what comes through. Literally, that's how I was sitting in this exact chair. It just popped up. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So anyway, what to expect when you're up leveling, how to navigate relationship shifts and potential rifts as you go in maybe a different direction, identity reorientations, physical integration, upper limiting, and sneaky forms of self-sabotage, and more. So that's a lot, but we also have the Q&As. So whether you continue, like I would be absolutely delighted to spend 6 weeks with you. So if you continue, hell yeah. This is the tip of the iceberg. And either way, I hope this was valuable for you guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pillow Talk Radio. I'm Cora Boyd, and make sure to subscribe so we can keep you in the loop. In the interim, you can find me on Instagram at @theCoraBoyd, YouTube Cora Boyd, website coraboydcoaching.com. Have an excellent rest of your day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, and we'll catch you next week.